Okay, we are now here with Tom Bordonaro. He is the county assessor for San Luis Obispo County, and he is going to talk about Proposition 15. Tom, thanks for being here. I guess, first of all, could you tell us what Prop 15 is?
Sure. Thank you very much for having me and for this forum, which is very important. Prop 15, we call it the split roll. And what it does is it is going to split commercial and industrial property assessments away from the traditional mechanism of assessing properties, which is Proposition 13. So it's going to require assessors to reassess properties that are classified commercial and industrial every 3 years. And it will result in a very large tax increase in California. And the association that I belong to, the Assessors Association, was made up of all 58 county assessors, and we have them in the political spectrum from the far right to the far left. Came together and united. We are opposed to this initiative for several reasons. Right now, mainly, and we're just talking about the implementation side of it, it's pretty impossible to do what the initiative requires us to do within 3 years. And I could speak specifically to our little county, San Luis Obispo. Excuse me. San Luis Obispo County, it actually will cost about $2 million to our general fund because it does not even pay for itself. But statewide, it'll cost around $500 million for assessors to implement the split roll. There are not enough appraisers that are working to be able to put this together in a timely fashion. But the bigger problem is that it is right now, it's a terrible time to be increasing taxes. We're talking about a $1.3 trillion increase in assessed value, which is about about a $1.3 billion, actually a $12 billion increase in taxes on businesses, which then results in higher costs for the consumer because these businesses will pass it on to the consumer, and it's going to raise the cost of everything from your cup of coffee in the morning to your dinner at night. And right now, when businesses are already hurting because of the pandemic, it's just very unwise to do that in California.
Yeah, so you know, Tom, I understand that in California, most commercial property passes through property taxes to the tenant. So the landlord doesn't pick that up, the tenant does. Is that true? And do we expect that to have an impact?
Then that's exactly what will happen if this does pass. So your Starbucks, your Big Mac, whatever it is, they're going to be increased, even if they're not corporate-owned stores. If there are leases, the vast majority of commercial industrial leases are what we call triple net. So that the leasee, the person that is operating the business, is the one that increases, that will have to pay the higher taxes, and it's not going to come out of their profits. They're going to have to raise their prices. It's that simple. And for small and medium-sized counties, we actually lose money. Like I said, I am going to have to hire at least 11 new staff members. And I don't even have the square footage for them, let alone people that are qualified. It takes, the commercial and industrial appraisals are the most difficult appraisals to perform. And it's going to take a minimum of 3 years to grow those appraisers because we're not going to be able to get them off the street. There's just not enough appraisers. And counties like ours, and the majority of counties in California, there's just not enough commercial and industrial properties that are going to end up, because remember, counties only receive a portion of the tax dollar. In San Luis Obispo, it's 24 cents for every dollar. So my estimate is we're only going to raise around $400,000 in taxes that will end up coming to the county. But the cost is over $2 million a year for the new program. So it definitely is a loser financially for most counties. Some highly, some larger counties, Los Angeles, San Francisco, where they have a large portion of commercial industrial properties, I would imagine that they're going to see a net increase in their tax revenue. But don't let it fool you. This is not about simply fairness and equity. People will tell you that large businesses don't pay their fair share. This is about taking down Prop 13. If it was just about increasing revenues, the proponents would just simply apply a different tax rate to the commercial industrial properties instead of trying to split Prop 13. Excuse me.
Okay. So I'm really curious that those cost numbers are really surprising to me. I hadn't heard that before. I wonder maybe, what's driving this? Why is this prop on the ballot?
I was in the legislature in 1994. I represented this area in the assembly, and there was a move then by a group to establish a split roll. And they were quite honest about it, and they're very honest about it today. Their goal is to take apart Prop 13. They do not like Prop 13. They believe that it is one of the things that is holding local governments back from hiring employees and is driven by the public employees unions. It was a fellow that is now retired, but it was his mantra that Prop 13 was holding back revenues for local government and only looking at the side of the tax consumer, which what I mean by that is those that use the revenue that's generated. Prop 13 is not a bad thing. Prop 13 allows local governments and homeowners and property owners predictability because they know that their values are not going to be swinging widely when there's a recession or increasing dramatically when there's a boom. And so it gives them surety and it gives them protection. And so do the revenues. When you look at the other 49 states that value their property in different ways, you see local government revenues boom and you see them bust. And the reason that they boom and bust is because their revenues swing with the real estate market. And right now, we know with COVID-19 and the pandemic that commercial properties are hurting. We have businesses that are shuttering, they're closing down, they're not able to make it under the stay-at-home quarantine orders. And as a result, those revenues will drop because we value commercial industrial property on its income potential. So if there's no income, we lower the values. They don't stay at a inflated value. And so we're going to see in 2021 a drop in commercial industrial property values because just of the pandemic. And I bring that up only to demonstrate to folks what those swings are going to be like. So let's say that this passes and let's say that we can implement it right away, we're going to be implementing it when property values are down. So we're actually going to see a further exasperation of those market values. When under Prop 13, you have a lot of old base years that you are increasing in a down market because you have a lot of older property values. It dampens the effect of any downturn of the economy, and those commercial industrial properties are the ones that swing in California, much more so than residential properties. And one last thing on that, agriculture, the proponents will say that agriculture is protected, but that's only the land. All the actual improvements, including, let's say there's a mature orchard or mature vineyard, that would have to be reassessed every 3 years. If there's a dairy barns, if there is any type of equipment, any type of real property on the structure those will be, it could be anything from a seed sorting facility to a packaging facility, cold storage. All those would be reassessed every 3 years. So don't let the proponents fool you that agriculture is exempt. Agriculture will be hit also quite hard. The only ones that will be left out of this are residential properties, and that does include apartments, multifamily units, but otherwise it is going to be a huge tax increase on Californians, whether they be the owner or whether they be the tenant.
Okay, thanks very much for that. I know one last thing. I know you've also got some opinions on Prop 19. We've got a little bit of time. Can you do 2 minutes on that for us?
Sure, absolutely. So Prop 19 is was an initiative that was put on the ballot originally by the Realtors Association, and it increases the ability of folks to be able to move their old base years across county lines. What I don't like about the Prop 19 is that it throws the inheritance portion protection that is currently in the Constitution under the bus. In other words, if you want to pass your properties on from the parent to your child, that is going to be limited to the principal residence only. And so if you have a vacation unit, or if you have a small business, those are now, they're no longer exempt. So it throws the parent-child exclusion under the bus, and it allows folks to move across county lines 3 times. I don't know why it's 3 times. The original intent of it was Prop 60, allows the folks that after they're retiring, they're selling their 4-bedroom home, they don't need it anymore, they can keep their old tax base and buy a smaller home. This one actually allows you multimillionaires to buy even larger homes and take a prorated value with them, and that advantage with them into another county. And it really is going to do 2 things in a county like mine. It's going to increase the already inflated cost of living for the locals, and it is going to cause folks to move into areas where they didn't before and push out the locals who may be in an area that is affordable. And I think that I don't mind going across county lines, which everyone could do. Everyone in California can go across county lines if your board of supervisors would adopt an ordinance. And so you can move from San Francisco to Monterey, or from San Francisco to San Luis, or whatever that might be. But the county board of supervisors has to adopt an ordinance, because when you cross county lines, there's winners and losers. And counties like mine, which are a net importer of people who are moving in that are pretty wealthy, that are coming to San Luis Obispo County, and they're bringing in an extremely low tax base. Again, it inflates the cost of housing for everybody else that might be here, and it also hurts government revenues because they're moving in those lower tax bases. So I think that I think there needs to be reform to the way that base years are moved around California. But again, this is not the right way to do it. And this was something that was put together last minute at the legislature, and it's got a lot of other issues that I think that need to be addressed before something should be put before the voters.
Okay, thanks very much. Tom Bordonaro, Assessor, San Luis Obispo County. I want to point out, by the way, that we've reached out and we've asked the proponents of both these propositions to come speak to us. Did not get any response. I'm not sure who's supporting these, but we tried. But thank you, Tom. Thank you for being here. Okay, and I'm Roger Royce with California Statewide Candidates Forum.